Welcome to the advent of AI. My name is Paul Drake. I'm your host today. I'm excited to be joined by Michael Balarezo, and we are talking today about really a deeply important topic in the conversation of insurance nowadays, which is the experience for a claimant that has filed a claim. What is their experience like? There's so much in the news nowadays. There's so much talk about property insurance and the fires in LA and the most recently the tornadoes in the Midwest and in the South. There's a lot of people who are going to be filing insurance claims, and they're about to have an experience with an insurance company that could dramatically change the quality of their life. So Michael is someone who's very passionate about this topic. And when we started talking a couple of weeks ago about this together, he was telling me about Adjusto and what they're doing at Adjusto to change that experience and to improve the life of the claimant through AI-driven technology. So Michael, I would love to just kind of let you take the stage and talk about what's driving you to work on this particular problem, and talk a little bit about the problems today in the insurance industry, specifically for claimants and for adjusters. And then eventually we'll transition the conversation to talk specifically about the ways in which AI is going to be able to address these problems. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. And yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot of opportunity for artificial intelligence to help specifically with claimants, but also adjusters. And I want to make that very clear. I think there's always a lot of emphasis on providing solutions to help with policyholders and help them, let's say, recover from loss and get their story across to make sure that they feel heard. But I don't think there's enough attention aimed at the workforce that actually does the work to help the people get back on their feet post loss. And so thanks for bringing that up, because I think that is a massive area where we can focus and bring a lot of attention, is software that also empowers adjusters as well.
So let's talk about this a little bit. What is the experience like for an adjuster nowadays? What are some of the challenges that they face? And then how is that ultimately failing the claimants when the adjusters are not well served?
Yeah. And so I think if we take a step back a little bit to kind of understand, I think from the policyholder perspective, we can kind of circle back into how adjusters kind of fit into that. But if we look at where we're at today, the world that we live in today is very exciting. It is accelerating so fast with technology. And I'd argue that the expectations that consumers have are also driven by that fast technological shift. And specifically what AI is doing is it's giving consumers a new sense of, let's say, expectations from technology. And that is for services to be fast and even faster than before, for them to be personalized, and then also for them to be accurate. And if we look at those three things, fast, personalization, and accuracy, I think we can both agree that there's a lot of room for improvement in the insurance space. And I know we're kind of saying this a little jokingly, but let's be honest, like, I think this is a very real problem. And one of the things that insurance, because it is a risk-averse industry, is typically, let's say, like the last one to adopt any technological change. And rightfully so. Like, I get that, right? We do not want to incur too much risk. We want to see how the leaves kind of settle before we start to adopt technology. But I think that mindset has to shift, and it should shift, because the opportunity is especially for insurance companies that haven't gone through a significant digital transformation or business transformation. You can actually leapfrog your competitors through utilizing AI tools. And it is to fix some of the issues around speed, personalization, and accuracy. So let's just dive deep into one area, one specific focus that I see breaking down on the policyholder side first, and that is transparency. So transparency is effectively the cornerstone of trust when it comes to working claims. I remember working as a claims adjuster. One of the things that you can do to really help move a claim along, but then also help provide really good experience, it's the simple things, honestly. It's just communication, just proactively communicate. People don't like to be left in the dark. And what you're trying to do as an adjuster to help enable that trust and to build or to illuminate areas where you can build trust is to just be a little bit more transparent in your communication. Just be proactive. Let's look at this from the perspective of a policyholder. So someone files a claim. They are in a moment of pain, loss, suffering. It could be an embarrassing moment. Maybe you left your backpack on the subway and then you get your backpack stolen and you have to
Yeah.
call in the claim because all your stuff's in there, your laptop, your makeup, your cell phone, your clothes to the gym, what have you. Or it could be something as tragic as losing your house to a tornado or a fire, right?
Yeah.
And you are grieving. And so transparency is so important because it helps build trust. And I see claims as really an exercise in building trust. And it's also an opportunity to build that trust as well. Because so far, policyholders have this expectation. They have this expectation that insurance companies are going to be there to help them when times get tough in the moment of loss. Why? Because they've been paying premium, right? That's the whole promise. I pay you money, you help me when, things hit the fan.
Yeah.
Obviously within policy limits and perils and the policy itself. But I think because of that inherent expectation, policyholders are effectively hoping that adjusters can help serve them in their time of need. And typically the claim goes really well when you kick things off. Policyholders are very happy to hear from you as an adjuster. Thank you for reaching out. The adjuster does a fantastic job of explaining how the claims process works and policy limits and what's covered, etc. And then for straightforward claims, things are pretty seamless. It's the complex claims. And I'm going to bundle like anything that is not straightforward is just complex. And this is like your claims that can take somewhere from like a week to 2 weeks to like 4 weeks or even longer.
Yeah.
That requires some decisioning. And I think it's in that complex area where it becomes so much more important to provide a level of service that meets that expectation of fast, personalized, and accurate through a human experience, and also leverage tools that allow adjusters to do that and not overburden them with work.
What are the challenges then for adjusters? What does life look like for them today, who are trying to address some of these claims that are very complex and prolonged? What are the challenges that they have? How are they not able to perform their best nowadays with the technology that's provided for them, or the solutions that are provided? How are they challenged nowadays to actually provide that fast, accurate, and personalized service?
Got it. Yeah. So that's a good question. I think the promise of automation has always been through the lens of software that we can allow adjusters to work faster and make decisions faster so that therefore they can provide better claims experience. But after working my claim personally and also speaking with other adjusters and other policyholders who survived the Marshall Fire, it's clear that there are still a lot of gaps in the software that adjusters use to help them resolve claims. And so one issue specifically I can recall, I spoke with an adjuster just last week. We were discussing some issues that they have in the claims process and using software specifically. And this one problem seems to be pretty prevalent. And it is, let's say, inaccurate classification of items, for example. And this is going to be a contents claim to be more specific. So in this process, what the adjuster does is they actually receive an items list and then they send it out to the software to get valued and classified. And what's been revealed is that the classifications for these items are largely inaccurate, which actually then has this like trickle down effect of like improper RCV, improper ACV, improper depreciation. And so you kind of get like this leakage that starts to spread. And the larger the claim is, the larger the leakage is. And so what this adjuster has to do is they have to go back into the platform after it's already done the work, and then they have to manually review everything by hand. And so I think the promise of automation is there, and I forget the number that they use, but it was somewhere like over half of the items, they just end up fixing themselves anyways. But the fact that they have to go back and fix the items, I think is the real problem. Right. And so what does that do? It ends up causing more work for the adjuster. And if you're an adjuster who really wants to do an amazing job, you're going to go ahead and
Of course.
double check the work because you've probably got burned in the past. Maybe you know about that, but maybe maybe you're an adjuster who isn't aware that this is happening, and then you're using the application as face value, and then you experience this firsthand when a policy holder comes back and starts to chew you out over the phone. And going back to the expectation piece, I think one of the things that current software fails to realize is that we live in a world where policyholders are the smartest they've ever been in history. They all have cell phones in their pockets, and they have the world's information at their fingertips. So like now the adjuster has added weight to need to actually do even more diligence than they're supposed to, because the promise of software was supposed to help fix that, but now they actually have to do double the work because the software isn't living up to its promise. So I think that's an example of kind of how, like, the software itself isn't helping adjusters to serve policyholders in the exercise of working this claim to build trust.
This is so to say back what I'm hearing from you is that the information relating to the claim, especially the more complex claims, the ways in which these items are being classified right now, the current systems that are using to classify these items are just not effective at doing that work. And so the promise of automation was there, and there's all these promises about being able to fix the experience for the adjusters to free up their time, yet these particular solutions are ineffective. And so this is obviously one small issue, and it's one small part of the larger picture of the experience for the adjuster, but it's indicative of some of the inherent limitations of existing technology. What is different now with it? How is AI poised to solve some of these particular problems, not just here in the micro and the classification of items, but in the larger sense? How is AI going to be able to address this? Why is this now an important inflection point in the history of insurance? And how is this going to impact not only the experience of the adjuster, but the experience of the claimant as well, the insured?
Okay, yes, it's a lot to unpack there. So problems with the existing space, how AI can be used to solve the issues that we just discussed. So I think what we have to understand is, like, what is the purpose of the software that we're using? And if we want to improve the claimant experience, we also have to understand how we're generating the outcomes to help improve that. And it's through software, and who's using the software, and it's the adjusters. And so if you want to solve the claimant problem, you actually have to solve the adjuster problem, and you have to provide them software that goes beyond just the menial task automation and help them with more decisioning. Because at the end of the day, claims is a very human to human experience, right? And I say this, I don't mean to butt heads. I kind of mean to do this, right? It is kind of like, claims is a very human to human experience where you ultimately build trust through the human connection, especially on the complex claims. And so if we understand that we can leverage AI to then help the adjuster problem with the software, where can we apply it? And so if we think about the promise of artificial intelligence, it's really good at recognizing patterns. And that's something that people do. But this is the new unlock, I believe, that AI provides that typical automation didn't. And I spent 10 years automating software. And so I'm very familiar with coding up entire workflows with, like, logic gates and decision trees. The challenge there, though, is that you have to understand every single permutation of, like, the edge case. And as we all know, with complex claims, there's like a million different ways that this thing plays out, right? And there's so many different variables. And so I think if we can leverage artificial intelligence in a way that accelerates pattern matching, you can then provide net new insights to adjusters while they're working the claim. And so, for example, we can take the whole example with the categorizations, right? That is a relatively, I wouldn't say easy problem to solve, but it's something that can be solved with data science and machine learning, right? And reinforcement learning and training, because you can do that with artificial intelligence. You just have to set up a system that allows for that to happen. And it's something that you couldn't do with just robotic process automation, RPA, without any level of sophistication. Imagine you're a claims adjuster and you go on site, you evaluate a water loss claim. There's water in the basement and it's a valid claim. We're not disputing fraud or anything of that sort. We're going to go ahead and pay it. And you've elected to go ahead and replace items like drywall and some of the other ancillary bits, flooring, plugs, some trim, etc. And this happens because you're an adjuster and you're writing software and you're writing your you're writing the estimate in the estimating software, and you end up, let's say, forgetting to add in a couple of items in one part of the damaged area of a wall, right? Like in the repair and replace process. Artificial intelligence can actually detect that 3 out of the 4 walls you actually allowed for X to be repaired and replaced at a certain price with all of these other additions, but in the one wall you didn't. It could flag that, right? That is a pattern. That is a very simple pattern that it could actually identify and say, oh, hey, adjuster, did you mean to do this, right? Or flag it. AI systems can be trained with a simple, like, thumbs up, thumbs down, right? And so it's just like, how do you create the experience for the adjuster for the app to then learn the patterns of the adjuster?
So as the adjuster is going about their work, the AI can be evaluating it to understand are there any discrepancies or any inaccuracies or inconsistencies in the adjuster's work to be an assistant to them in a sense to help them be more thorough, to be a little bit more consistent in their application of certain rules or certain payouts, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the new workflow where you use automation and artificial intelligence to accelerate work up until like the critical work and decisioning gets done. And you allow for the adjuster to have more space. That space allows them to be more diligent or gives them back time to then communicate proactively with the policyholder to then build that trust, right? One of the biggest areas that we see trust breaking down, as I mentioned earlier, is the communication bit. There was something else I saw recently online where a policyholder had a really bad experience and it's been weeks since they heard back from their adjuster, weeks. And so they ended up posting this on, they blasted the insurance company on LinkedIn, as I'm sure they like, this happens on X and LinkedIn. People, they want resolution. And so like, how else would you do that if you're not hearing back from your insurance company or your adjuster? And so imagine if you had an AI system that helped assist you work the claim as an adjuster, and you could just call that policyholder proactively and say, hey, I haven't reached out to you in a week. I'm still working your claim. The policyholder screenshotted their their computer screen, put it on LinkedIn, and it said something like, your claim is in processing. They're like, we've been seeing this for 4 weeks, right? Like, and I've been calling my adjuster. What's the problem? Adjusters are inundated. Claims are very complex. There's a lot of them to work, right? And so I get it. And sometimes they're in the field, they're not in the office. But what if we just gave them back the time and the space to then build that human connection? And I think that is the real promise of what AI can do with the software that adjusters use.
This is for sure one of the more labor intensive parts of the insurance life cycle from end to end is the claims process. And so I'm really excited to see more and more technology like Adjusto come out and address some of these needs for adjusters, and then eventually that a trickle effect impacting policyholders. I'm really excited to see the second order consequences of this technology being applied. Really quickly, just one last thought here, because I want to make sure we get this recorded, is what are your thoughts on how is AI going to continue to evolve to address the needs of those working on claims, of the adjusters, and eventually the policyholders? How do you see AI evolving to meet these needs in the future? I know that's a bit of a moonshot question.
That is a good one. So I think it's inevitable. Yeah, I believe it's inevitable. We will have a majority shift of straight through claims, right? What we call is like straight through processing in insurance for claims that should be settled quickly, and they can. We're going to be able to leverage artificial intelligence and a lot of this like reinforcement learning from adjusters to understand like the level of fraud and the level of risk associated with any claim that comes in. Any smaller claim, it doesn't even have to be a small claim. Like it could be a larger claim, but if you have the tooling available to help you process that claim in a straightforward and a straight through manner, you should. What this does is it alleviates the adjusters from having to work on the claims that they no longer need to focus time and attention on, because we have such a level of confidence that we can accurately pay this out, we can provide a great customer experience, and we can do so in a way that meets the customer with their expectations today, fast, fair, and accurate. And then give the adjusters time back to work on the more complex claims. So that way they can build those human to human connections. And that is where you really start to earn the trust of a policyholder, is in those moments that really matter, and use artificial intelligence to help surface what those things are. And I think AI becomes more of a partner rather than the solution that then solves all claims. I just don't think that's the world we're going to be painting anytime soon, because policyholders, like, they're humans and they have emotions and they feel, and they have insurance to help them in the most tragic and catastrophic moments of history. You need a person to help you with that.
Yeah.
When it matters. And if you can solve it with a computer, do it. But we need to focus on the things that really matter, and we should be rebuilding trust that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael, so much for coming on and speaking about this. If you're interested in learning more about what Michael's doing in Adjusto, or just learning more about how AI can be applied to the claims process as a whole, Michael is very passionate. He's a subject matter expert on this. Michael, how can they get a hold of you? How can they learn more?
Yeah, they could reach out on LinkedIn or go to our website, adjusto.ai, and we have a form that they can fill out and just say hello.
Awesome. Thank you so much, folks, for watching. And thanks again, Michael, for joining.
Bye.